What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's hardcore mode and some other changes it's gotten recently, since it has had a few patches since launch already, and as the game I have so far enjoyed the most this year, in terms of new releases anyway, combined with the fact that one of my favorite things about the first game was actually hardcore mode, it seemed like a good time to touch base here and talk about a lot of this stuff. So, very generally, hardcore mode, as the name might imply, simply makes the game a lot harder through a variety of means at a base level, such as no longer showing you your location on the map, your compass losing cardinal directions and only showing you objectives when you are relatively close to them, being unable to see things like the block or riposte indicators as you're in combat. You can't see your health or your stamina, though there are visual indicators for those things, just to name a few. Now, in addition to that, the game also forces you to pick at least 3 negative perks, though I will be doing all of them when I do this, because there's an achievement for beating hardcore with every single negative perk active, and we'll go over those in just a moment. While all of that is, in fact, very difficult, the thing to keep in mind there is, this is the kind of thing that mostly makes the beginning of the game really hard, and then obviously the map thing is more of a consistent through line, but a lot of the negative perks actually get offset by just progress in the game. For instance, there's one that makes it harder to feed yourself because your nutrition drops dramatically in comparison to normal, but like one of the first perks you can pick up slows that down by like 30%. So you have some options. Now, you might be thinking to yourself that if you've played hardcore mode, you already know what all the perks are from the first game, but it's actually not the case, because while they wanted the general theme to be the same, they did actually want it to be somewhat different, not least of which because Henry's already alive here, and thus the gag about killing you immediately before your character reaches adulthood before you start hardcore mode doesn't quite work. So while there are a few perks here that are returning from the hardcore mode, a lot of them are actually new. So for starters, we've got Menace. This makes the brand that you get from committing crimes permanent, which means once that happens, the debuff you get does not fade away with time, meaning that any crime you commit after that basically results in your death by execution. Then there's Punchable Face, which makes you a lot easier to kill in combat by making enemies substantially stronger and just making you take more damage. Then there's Bashful, so one of the ways that you are supposed to be able to get around the map marker thing is by asking people for directions or where you are. Bashful makes that impossible and also slows down speech experience gain. Then we've got Picky Eater. This causes everything food-wise in your inventory to spoil faster. Again, this is the kind of thing that's going to get offset with perks really fast, but will be a little bit annoying in the beginning, to be sure. One of the slightly rougher ones I actually think is Sweaty. This makes you dirtier faster, and it also makes you stink faster, which means you get more easily detected, especially in stealth, not least of which because they've doubled the radius for it as well, and there's nothing you can do about that besides bathing regularly, but it actually increases the rate at which you get dirty much faster. So that one actually seems like it might be genuinely annoying the whole way through. Then we've got Hangry Henry. As you become more and more hungry, you start reducing your speech, charisma, intimidation. It's also harder to fill yourself up via food, and the rate which you burn through your nutrition itself is increased. This, again, can actually be offset a decent bit by some of those initial perks. Then we've got everybody's favorite. This one basically makes you sleepwalk. You are also sleepier in general. Your need for sleep increases 40% faster, and when you do sleep, sometimes you just wake up randomly in other locations, which, depending on the circumstance, can be quite bad. Then there's Numbskull. This just makes it 40% more difficult to level up because it reduces the rate at which you gain experience for everything by 40%. In a game where you can grind, you can definitely get around that, mind you, but it's going to make things take a little longer for sure. Second to last, there is Heavy Footed. This increases your general noise level by 25 straight out of the gate, and what's more, your shoes will actually wear down twice as fast. There are some crafting perks you can use to slow down the wear rate of things like this, so that part is something you can get around, but the noise level, if you're trying to play with any form of stealth, is going to be significant. Not impossible, mind you, maybe just a bit annoying depending on your exact setup, but I do think you could just sort of skill your way around that one. But then we've got Bad Back. So this reduces your carrying capacity by 50%, which is bad obviously. Not something you couldn't work around. I would say, if anything, they're actually pretty generous with the carrying capacity in the base game. But also, when you are picking herbs and everything, there's a small chance that you'll throw your back out, which will reduce your movement speed for a short time. So honestly, kind of just annoying. I don't think that one is actually going to be that bad, but it is pretty funny. Now, if you're interested in trying out hardcore mode for yourself, the main thing I would tell you is that even with all of these enabled, the game isn't as bad as it initially sounds, because as I tried to sort of pepper in there, you can relatively easily mitigate a lot of these perks through various means once you know what you're doing. I'd probably save this kind of thing for a second playthrough generally, just so you know how to mitigate some of this stuff. But you definitely can, and even things that might seem like they were a little harder to begin with, like the fact that you can't see the little star in combat, which means it's a little harder to set up your combos for yourself, or block or riposte, because it doesn't show you those markers either. The catch there is, though, there's actually a lot of visual and audio cues in the game that will help you with that. For instance, every time a character goes to attack you, the moment at which you need to perfect block, they sort of make a grunt via an audio cue, so you can actually literally hear when you should perfect block. And then if you're running out of stamina, while you may not be able to see it, the screen will start to turn blue and then gray, so you kind of still know when to back off and regen your stamina. And then health is even more obvious because the screen starts to turn red. So as long as you understand how those systems work and know to listen for the audio cues, they are once again simply not as bad as that initial gut reaction might make you think they are. And then there's the actual running around. So once you get to the part where you can explore out in the open world, really, your main goal should just be grinding up levels and mitigating as much of this through perks as you possibly can. The main thing I would tell you to avoid is basically anything overly risky, because you can still save pretty freely. The only catch is you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you are getting into some risk before you get the chance to save, or losing a bunch of progress because you didn't have the resources built up to save readily. So basically, go pick a bunch of mushrooms, which might be a little slow. Make sure you've got food, make sure you can take care of your basic needs, work on your alchemy to build up your savior schnapps and probably some gold while you're at it. Use all of the resources gained from that and the experience to, of course, get perks to mitigate stuff, but then you can start training up combat and things and getting around the other stuff. So that's kind of the general gist of it, and I think it's going to be a pretty good time going through this for myself at least, though this honestly could not have released at a worse time for me, so it will take a little while for me to actually get the full playthrough done. And maybe I'll touch base with people once I've done the entire thing, but that's kind of the approach. Now, before we start wrapping this video up, there has been a few other additions to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 here lately. For starters, the hardcore mode itself actually did come with a bunch of other fixes and things, mostly centered around crashes and just general problems that might pop up. So ideally, the game should be working a little better for people. If it was giving you problems, you might want to look into that. But probably the much more exciting thing for people, I imagine, is that they dropped official mod support for the game, meaning that the tool set and stuff is out there for people to use and create mods for. Now, I will say, while I generally just very much so enjoy that mods are available, I think they do great for longevity of certain titles, but I will mention that for me at least, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, because of the very specific experience it's trying to give people, outside of perhaps a mod to simply let you save whenever, I really don't know that I would mess with it too much. And even with the Save Anywhere mod, I mean, the main thing there is just getting all the weight of those potions out of your inventory, so you don't have to worry about carrying them around, as I felt like they were much more available here than in the first game. But either way, official mod support's in there, so hopefully people will start coming up with some cool mods. I'm sure they're already in the works. And then that previous patch, the same one that added mod support, actually also added a couple of barbers to the game, one for each region, I believe, which will let you, of course, change your hairstyle and everything for Henry, and I believe after getting a haircut, you also get a temporary charisma buff, is my understanding. So plenty of cool things to go around. Personally, hardcore mode is a big deal to me. That, again, is how I enjoyed playing the first game the most, so excited to dive into it here as soon as I get a free moment to do so. At least get into it properly, but as you could probably tell from this video, I do have that sort of save file and playthrough all set up and ready to go as soon as I have a moment. But regardless of how long that actually takes, given that I believe they are planning 3 expansions or DLC for this game, as their Steam page would allude to, I'm obviously going to be checking those out in the future. So one way or another, there is more Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to come on this channel, so hopefully you'll stick around for it, which is as good a place as any to wrap up this particular video. But by all means, let me know what you think of all this down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.